"Mom, I don't want to die," Matthew said, and Claire felt the ground slip out from under her feet. And before we continue, friends, write in the comments where you're watching from and what you're doing right now. I'm curious how far our stories travel. He was 6 years old, and he shouldn't have known words like that. He shouldn't have said them so calmly, looking at her with his huge gray eyes, where there was no fear left anymore, only exhaustion. A child's impossible exhaustion from endless hospitals, IVs, tests, and doctors who looked away and said, "We're doing everything we can." Claire dropped to her knees beside his bed and cupped his gaunt face in her hands. "You're not going to die. Do you hear me? You're not going to die." Matthew gave a faint smile. "You always say that." Snow was falling outside the hospital window. December had been brutal, and the radiators in the county hospital's pediatric ward were barely coping. Claire tucked another blanket around her son, the one she'd brought from home, with embroidered ducklings Matthew liked to count before falling asleep. 19 ducklings, he whispered, closing his eyes. I counted. "Go to sleep, sweetheart." "Mom, that doctor who came today. Is he going to treat me too?" Claire remembered the department head's face. How he'd led her into the hallway, how long he stared at the floor before speaking. "Claire, we've run every possible test. The board has met 3 times. I understand you're a medical professional yourself, so I'll be direct. We can't find the cause. The organs look fine, the labs are within normal limits, but the body is shutting down. It happens extremely rarely, and we're powerless." "Yes, sweetheart," Claire said softly. "He'll treat you too." Matthew fell asleep, and Claire sat beside him, holding his hand, watching the early winter dusk thicken outside the window. She had worked as a midwife for 17 years. Delivered more than 1,000 babies. She had seen life come into the world red, wrinkled, screaming, impossibly beautiful. And now she was watching life leave her own child, unable to do anything about it. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Claire stepped into the hallway, trying not to wake Matthew. "Claire, it's Margaret." "Honey, I know you've got a situation, but we have an emergency. Half the department is down with the flu, and tonight we're expecting transfers from the county. 4 women in labor, 1 complicated case. There's no one to cover. No one at all." Claire leaned against the cold wall. "Margaret, I can't leave Matthew." I know. But listen, it's just 1 night. Your replacement, Linda, said she can sit with him. She's nearby anyway, her Ashley is in the ward too." "Claire, I wouldn't ask if there were another option." Claire closed her eyes. 17 years in the profession. 17 years of being the first to meet people at the threshold of life. And not once had she refused when called. Not when she was heavily pregnant herself. Not when she was burying her mother. Not when her husband packed his bags and said he was tired of her endless night shifts. "Okay. I'll come." Linda, a full-figured woman in her 40s with a kind, tired face, arrived half an hour later. Go, Claire. I'll watch over your sunshine. Ashley's right nearby. She's getting better already, I'll run back and forth. Everything will be fine." Claire kissed Matthew's sleeping forehead. He was hot, as he had been for weeks now, and she stepped out into the blizzard. The maternity hospital was in the next district, usually a 20-minute bus ride. But buses had been canceled because of the storm, and she had to walk. The wind lashed her face with stinging snow, threw icy clumps under her feet. Claire walked with her head down, thinking about what the department head had said. "We're powerless." How could they be powerless? How could modern medicine be powerless against the illness of a 6-year-old boy? They send people into space, transplant hearts, but can't save one small Matthew. Margaret met her at the maternity ward, small, gray-haired, like an anxious bird. "Thank God you made it. Get changed, quickly. The first one's already in labor, contractions every 3 minutes." And Claire changed, put on her white coat and green cap, and stepped into the familiar glow of the lights. Into the smell of antiseptic and sweat, into the rhythm of screams and deep breathing. This was where she belonged. Here, she knew what to do. The first birth was easy. A strong young woman, 3rd child, textbook case. A boy, 3.8 kilos, cried right away. Claire placed him on his mother's chest and lingered for a second, watching the woman press the baby to her face glowing with that special light Claire had seen 1,000 times and felt the same way every time. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "You did great. Get some rest." The second birth was harder. Narrow pelvis, abnormal presentation. Claire worked alongside the on-call doctor, a young resident named Alex, who was sweating and clearly nervous. 3 hours of struggle, and a girl 2.9 kilos, a weak cry, but everything turned out fine. "How are you so calm?" Alex asked when they stepped into the hallway. "I almost died of fear." "You get used to it. The main thing is that your hands do their job, even when your head is panicking." The third delivery, at 4 a.m, twins, nothing unusual. And then, just when Claire thought the night was finally over, the nurse Helen came running to the desk. "Claire, there was a call from the highway. A car is stuck, there's a woman in labor inside. The ambulance can't get through, the road is buried. They're asking if someone can head out with a medical kit." "Where exactly?" 20 kilometers north, past the Pinewood turn. "There's a Shell gas station." Claire looked out the window. The blizzard hadn't let up. Snow was coming down in sheets. "Who's going?" "Our security guard Pete said he can drive his car. But they need a medic." Margaret shook her head. "Claire, don't. It's dangerous. Let them wait until the road is cleared." "She's in labor, Margaret. In a car. In a blizzard. How long will they be waiting for the plows?" The senior midwife sighed. "You've always been stubborn." Claire pulled a down jacket over her scrubs, grabbed the stock medical bag, and went out to the parking lot. Pete, a mustached man in his 60s, was already warming up his beat-up Ford. "Hop in, kid. Maybe we'll make it through." They drove slowly. The wipers barely handled the snow, the headlights illuminated a solid white wall. Pete gripped the wheel and muttered curses under his breath. Claire stayed silent, clutching the handle of the medical bag. "Why so gloomy?" Pete asked without taking his eyes off the road. "My son is sick." "With what?" "No one knows." Pete was quiet for a moment. "My wife was sick 10 years ago. No one knew what it was either. Then a neighbor gave us the address of a woman in some remote village. We went, she gave my wife some herbal stuff, and a month later she was like new. I still don't understand what that was. I don't believe in that." "I didn't either. But my wife's still alive." The car jolted over a bump, and Claire slammed her shoulder into the door. "They're charlatans. They take advantage of desperate people. Maybe. Or maybe not. Who knows?" They spotted the gas station from afar, bright lights in the white chaos of the storm. An old Honda stood by the pump with its rear door wide open. A man in an unbuttoned jacket was pacing nearby. "Thank God," he shouted when he saw the Ford. "She's giving birth. Right now." Claire jumped out of the car, ignoring the wind and snow. She looked inside. On the back seat, covered with rags, lay a woman. Young, thin, with sunken eyes and bruises on her face. She was breathing heavily, looking at Claire without fear, with a strange kind of submission. "How long have the contractions been going?" 3 hours, maybe more." Claire examined her quickly. "Full dilation. We're delivering now." "Here," the man went pale. "In the car?" "In the car. Bring everything you can find. Blankets, clean cloth, water." The man ran toward the gas station. Claire turned back to the woman. "What's your name?" "Rachel." "Rachel, my name is Claire. I'm a midwife. We're going to deliver this baby together, okay?" Rachel nodded. And then Claire noticed the marks on her wrists. Distinctive marks. "Were you in prison?" Rachel looked away. "I was. I escaped." Claire froze for a second. Then she unzipped the medical bag. "We'll deal with that later. Right now, we deliver." A birth in a car, in a blizzard, by the light of a flashlight held by a trembling man. He turned out to be a truck driver who had picked Rachel up on the highway. Claire worked almost blind, by touch alone, relying on her hands and 17 years of experience. Rachel didn't scream, only moaned through clenched teeth and gripped the back of the front seat. Push. Again. One more time. Good. You're doing great. The head's coming. Just a little more. The girl was born at 5:43 a.m., just as the blizzard began to ease. Small, red, with wet black hair. She cried immediately, loud and demanding. She's healthy, Claire said, wrapping the baby in her own towel. Small, but healthy. Rachel looked at her daughter and cried. Silently, messily, smearing tears over her dirty cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Thank me later. Right now you need a hospital. Pete radioed the ambulance. The road was already being cleared. They promised to arrive within an hour. Claire sat in the car beside Rachel and the newborn, monitoring both of them. The truck driver brought a thermos of hot coffee and a gas station sandwich. Where did you escape from? Claire asked. Rachel hesitated. Pinewood Prison. I served 4 years. For theft. And 3 months ago I found out I was pregnant. By a guard, the bastard. They said I'd give birth and they'd take the baby. I couldn't give her up. Claire looked at her thin, exhausted, with those terrifying eyes of someone who had been through hell. They'll find you. I know. I've got nothing to lose. The main thing is that she was born. Now at least someone will know that I existed. The baby slept on her mother's chest. So tiny, so defenseless. I have a son, Claire suddenly said. He's 6. He's dying. The doctors can't find the cause. Rachel looked up. Which hospital? The county. Pediatric ward. Rachel was silent for a long time. Then she said, I know a woman. Far away, out in the middle of nowhere. When I ran from the shelter the first time, I was 14, I wandered into her place. She nursed me for 3 days. Not a witch or anything, she just knows something others don't. People go to her. From everywhere. You mean a healer? Call her whatever you want. She saved my life. I hadn't eaten for almost a month back then, thought I was going to die. She looked at me and said, they didn't stop you from eating, they stopped you from living. And she did something I don't know what. But after that, I started eating again. And I wanted to live. Claire felt something inside her flinch. This was wrong. It was unscientific. Where does she live? Rachel gave her the address. The village of Quiet Springs, 300 kilometers north. The middle of nowhere. Ask for Agatha. Everyone knows her. The ambulance arrived. Rachel and the baby were loaded inside. Claire saw the young woman looking at her through the frosted glass, with a strange mix of gratitude and doom. Good luck to you, Claire said. And to you. The ambulance drove away. Pete took Claire back to the maternity ward. She finished the rest of her shift on autopilot, filled out the reports, changed her clothes, and went back to the hospital to Matthew. He wasn't sleeping. He was lying there, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 23, he said when Claire walked in. I counted the cracks. There are 23. Good morning, sunshine. Mom, I had a dream last night that I was flying over the city. It was really beautiful. And not scary at all. Claire sat down beside him and took his hand. You're not flying anywhere. I'm not letting you go. Matthew smiled. I know. Linda peeked into the room. Claire, he slept well all night. Temperature is 99, pressure is stable. A good night. Thank you. When Linda left, Claire pulled out her phone and opened the map. Quiet Springs 300 kilometers. Bad roads. But if she left early in the morning? She stopped herself. This was madness. She was a medical professional. She believed in science and evidence-based medicine. Some healer in the middle of nowhere. Charlatanism. Taking money from desperate people. She had seen those cases. After that kind of treatment, people were brought into intensive care with kidney failure, with advanced cancer. But Matthew lay on the bed, so thin, with those shadows under his eyes, counting the cracks in the ceiling. And the doctors were saying, "We're powerless." The next day she asked the department head for time off. "I need to go somewhere. For 2 days. Please." Dr. Robert looked at her over his glasses. "Have you found some kind of clinic? A specialist? Something like that. Claire, I understand your state. But I have to warn you, don't cling to a straw. I've seen parents take children to charlatans, spend their last money. I just want to try." Robert sighed. "All right. We'll keep an eye on Matthew." Claire didn't have a car. Her ex-husband, Kyle, had taken their old Ford in the divorce. She called Helen, a friend from school who worked at a logistics company. "Helen, I need a car. For 2 days. I'll pay." "What money, Claire?" "Take mine. It's just freezing in the parking lot anyway." "Where are you going?" "Quiet Springs." "Where's that?" "North. 300 kilometers. Are you out of your mind? There's barely a road there." "And why do you need to go?" Claire hesitated. "There's a woman there. They say she can help." A long pause. "Claire, you mean some kind of healer?" "Helen, I don't know myself. Maybe it's nonsense. But I have to try. I have to." Another pause. "All right. Take the car. Just be careful, the roads are icy." Claire loaded Matthew into Helen's Toyota early in the morning, while it was still dark. He was weak, but perked up. For the first time in a week, he was out of the hospital, seeing the street, the city, people. "Mom, where are we going?" "To visit someone. A kind woman." "Will she cure me?" Claire tightened her grip on the steering wheel. "We'll see, sweetheart." The first 100 kilometers were a normal highway. Then they turned onto a narrow country road, winding between bare trees. Dirty snowbanks lined the shoulders. Every so often they passed villages' crooked fences, smoke from chimneys, dogs on chains. Matthew fell asleep in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket. Claire watched him in the rearview mirror and thought about how they had reached this point. How did it start? 3 months ago. Matthew came home from daycare sluggish, without an appetite. Claire thought it was a cold. Gave him vitamins, put him to bed early. But the next day he didn't want to get up. "Mom, I'm tired." Tired at 6 years old after a full night's sleep. A week later, the fever started. Low grade 99.5 but constant. The local pediatrician, a very young woman who looked at Matthew with frightened eyes, prescribed antibiotics. They didn't help. A referral to the county hospital. Tests, MRI, ultrasound, specialist consults. Everything normal. But Matthew was fading, losing weight, growing weaker, sleeping more and more. "We can't find the cause," the department head said. "We're providing supportive therapy." Supportive therapy. Meaning they were watching him die and doing nothing. The GPS beeped. "In 500 meters, turn right." Claire turned onto a dirt road. The car jolted over a pothole. Matthew woke up. "Where are we?" "Almost there." The village of Quiet Springs looked like it was stuck in the 70s. A dozen houses scattered along a hillside. A well with a wooden sweep. A church without a cross, probably a former community center. Not a single streetlight, not a single car besides their Toyota. Claire stopped by the first house, got out, knocked on the gate. No one answered for a long time. Then a curtain twitched in the window, and the door creaked open. "What do you want?" An old woman in a padded jacket stood in the doorway, squinting suspiciously. "Hello. I'm looking for Agatha." The woman looked her over. "What for?" "They told me she can help. My son is sick." A long pause. "Last house. At the edge. You'll see it." And she closed the door. The last house at the edge of the village was old but solid log built, with carved window frames and a high porch. Smoke rose from the chimney. A red hen ran around the yard. Claire took Matthew out of the car. He wrapped his arms around her neck and rested his head on her shoulder. "Mom, it's quiet here. Yes, sweetheart. She climbed the porch steps and knocked. It's open, a voice called from inside. Claire stepped in and froze. She had expected anything: stuffed owls, bundles of herbs, icons in the corner, the smell of incense and dampness. But inside it was bright and clean, smelling of fresh bread and apples. A large masonry stove covered with a patchwork quilt. A table with an embroidered tablecloth. And on the shelves not herbs, but books. Lots of books. Claire caught the titles: Internal Medicine, Clinical Diagnostics, Pathophysiology. A woman sat at the table. Not an old crone. Claire had expected someone in her 80s, but this woman was probably in her early 60s and looked younger. Gray hair pulled into a bun, a face almost without wrinkles, clear, attentive eyes. "Hello," Claire said. "Hello." The woman looked at Matthew, and Claire noticed her expression change. "Lay him on the bench." By the stove. Claire laid Matthew on the wide bench covered with a sheepskin. He was already drifting off again. Even the short walk from the car had exhausted him. "My name is Agatha," the woman said. "And yours?" "Claire. Claire Porter. I'm a midwife. From the county." "A midwife?" Agatha smiled faintly. "A good profession. Sit down. I'll pour some tea." Claire sat at the table, unable to take her eyes off Matthew. Agatha set a clay mug in front of her, hot tea smelling of honey and herbs. "Tell me." And Claire told her everything. How Matthew got sick. How she took him to doctors. How no one found anything. How he faded before her eyes. How she delivered a baby for an escaped inmate in a blizzard on the highway, and how that woman gave her this address. Agatha listened without interrupting. Then she stood, walked over to Matthew, placed a hand on his forehead. "No fever. That's good. He spikes every evening. Up to 99.5. Every evening, yes. At the same time?" Claire thought. "Around 6 p.m. Agatha nodded. She lifted Matthew's hand, steadied his palm. Then his nails. Then looked into his eyes. Matthew stirred and looked at her without fear. "What's your name, little one?" "Matthew." "Matthew, do you like milk?" "Yes." "And what else do you like?" "Porridge, soup, meat." "I like everything. Grandma just says I don't eat well." "And who is Grandma?" "My mom's mom." Claire flinched. "My mother died 2 years ago." "Then who feeds the boy?" "I do, at daycare." "And?" "My mother-in-law, when." Claire stopped herself. Agatha looked at her. "Your mother-in-law?" "Former mother-in-law. We divorced a year ago. But Matthew goes to his father's on weekends, and Dorothy feeds him, spoils him. She adores him." "Adores him," Agatha repeated. "How long has he been going there?" "Since birth." "Well, not exactly. After the divorce it became weekends. Before that she came to us, helped out, cooked." "Often cooked?" "Yes. Sometimes." Agatha sat back down at the table. "Listen carefully. I am not a witch and not a sorceress. I am a doctor. I worked as an internist at a district hospital for 40 years. Then I retired and moved here, to my home village. People started coming. Some still remembered my grandmother. She treated with herbs too. I don't turn anyone away. Sometimes I can help, most often when city doctors miss what's obvious. Too many tests, too little attention to the person." Claire was silent. "Your son is not sick. His body is healthy. But something is poisoning him. Slowly, quietly. In a way that doesn't show up on tests." "What? What is poisoning him?" "Not what. Who?" Claire felt her chest go cold. "You're saying that." "I'm not saying anything. Not yet. I want to see. Today. Bring me everything he's eaten in the past week. Everything he's had to drink. If you can, what your mother-in-law gave him. But she lives in the city. I can't dash you can." Claire looked at this woman with her clear eyes, trying to understand whether she was losing her mind or truly hearing what she was hearing. You think Dorothy? That she? I don't think anything. Not yet. Bring me everything you can. And leave the boy here. I'll watch over him. Claire left Matthew behind. He was already sleeping soundly on the bench by the stove, covered with that same patchwork quilt, and she drove back to the city. 3 hours there, 3 hours back. Her mind was fog. Dorothy. She had known that woman for 13 years, ever since the moment she met Kyle. Short, heavyset, with a perm and the constant scent of red door perfume. She worked as an accountant at a factory, then retired and devoted herself to her garden and her grandson. She adored Matthew. Claire had seen it endless gifts, toys, sweets. Claire, you barely feed him. Look how skinny he is. And then the little pies, the meat patties, the soups. No. Impossible. This was insane. But she went to her mother-in-law anyway. She called and said Matthew wanted her jam the strawberry one. And the cookies she'd baked last week, if there were any left. Dorothy sounded thrilled. Oh, Claire, of course. How is he? Still the same? Yes, still the same. My poor boy. My poor baby. Hold on, I'll pack everything up. Dorothy came out with an entire bag, a jar of jam, a container of cookies, a food tub with meat patties, a pack of cupcakes. This is all for him. Let him eat. Tell him Grandma loves him. Thank you, Dorothy. Claire, and how are you? You've gotten so thin. Why don't you come in? I'll feed you. No, thank you. I have to run. Dorothy watched the car pull away. Claire saw her in the rearview mirror, a small figure in a colorful robe, waving. By the time Claire got back to Quiet Springs, it was already dark. Matthew was sitting at the table eating porridge, real porridge from the stove, with butter and jam. Mom, it's good here. Agatha smiled. You bring it? Yes. Good. Go to sleep. I made a bed for you on the stove warm up there. Claire settled Matthew in. He fell asleep instantly, calm for the first time in a long time, without moaning or tossing. Claire lay down beside him, but she couldn't sleep. She stared into the dark, listening to the firewood crackle. Then she heard footsteps. A door creaked, dishes clinked softly. She climbed down from the stove and walked into the main room. Agatha sat at the table, where all the food Claire had brought from her mother-in-law was laid out. Next to it were little vials, test tubes, and a thick book. Can't sleep? Agatha asked without looking up. What are you doing? Checking. Claire sat across from her. You said you're a doctor. But you have a lab here. Old habit. When I worked at the district hospital, I had to run half the tests myself. We had one lab tech for 3 villages. Agatha scooped a spoonful of jam into a test tube. Dropped something in from a dark bottle. What is that? A reagent for heavy metals. Homemade, but it works. Claire watched as the liquid in the tube changed color. First red, then cloudy, with a greenish tint. What does that mean? Agatha didn't answer. She took a cookie, broke off a piece, ground it in a mortar. Added water, poured it into another tube. Dropped in the reagent again. The same result. Cloudy, greenish. Arsenic, Agatha said. Or something similar. We'd need a proper test to say exactly. But the symptoms fit. Chronic poisoning in small doses. Gradual fading. Low-grade fever in the evenings. Loss of appetite. Weakness. Claire felt her breath catch. You're saying your mother-in-law is poisoning your son. Claire jumped up so fast the chair toppled over. No. No, that's impossible. She loves him. She dashed sit down. She adores him. She does everything for him. Sit down, Agatha repeated. Her voice was calm, but firm. And listen. Claire set the chair upright and sat. Her hands were shaking. I've seen this before. Once. Many years ago. We had a woman in our district who poisoned the neighbors' chickens. Not because she hated the neighbors, but because she loved comforting them. She'd come over, sympathize, help, feel needed. When the chickens stopped dying, she'd poison them again. It's an illness. A psychological one. It's called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Claire didn't speak. A person harms someone close to them, most often a child, so they can then save them. Or so they can get attention, pity, a sense of importance. It isn't malice. It's a disease. Very rare, very terrifying, and almost always invisible. But Matthew, he's her grandson. She loves him. In her own way. With a sick kind of love. A love that kills. Claire covered her face with her hands. What do I do? First, stop giving him her food. Nothing. Not a single bite. And second. Agatha paused. Second, it's up to you. You can go to the police. You can talk to your husband. Your ex-husband. You can just leave and never let her see her grandson again. But I can't. I don't have proof. These foods are proof. Take them to a real lab. Have them tested. And for now, protect your son. Claire sat at that table until dawn. Agatha went to bed, leaving her alone. The sky outside began to lighten. The coals in the stove burned down. She thought about Dorothy. About the way she fussed over Matthew when he was little. The way she sang him lullabies. The way she cried when Claire and Kyle got divorced. Claire, I'm begging you, don't take my grandson from me. I won't survive without him. And Claire hadn't taken him. She'd allowed visits. Allowed her to feed him. She thought about Kyle. How he would react when he found out. He adored his mother. He would never believe it. She thought about Matthew, sleeping on the warm stove for the first time in a long while peacefully. In the morning, when Matthew woke up, he said, "Mom, I had good dreams." "What kind?" "That we were at the ocean. And you were teaching me how to swim." Claire pulled him close. "We'll go to the ocean." "We will. When you get better." Agatha fed them breakfast eggs, bread, milk. All hers, homemade. "Stay one more day," she told Claire. "Let the boy rest." And Claire stayed. The day passed in a strange, quiet, slow way, like a dream. Matthew played with the red hen Agatha had let inside to warm up. Claire helped around the house, peeled potatoes, washed dishes, carried water from the well. Simple work that left her head empty and light. "Have you been alone long?" Agatha asked that evening. "A year. Since the divorce." "Hard?" "I got used to it." "Was he a good husband?" Claire thought for a moment. "Not terrible. Just distant." "He was distant from the beginning. I just didn't want to admit it." Agatha nodded. "It happens. I got married like that too. I was young and stupid. Thought I'd learn to live with it, learn to love it. I didn't. I left after 5 years. Lived alone the rest of my life. No regrets. And kids? None. At first it didn't work out, then I didn't want them." She looked at Matthew, who had fallen asleep on the couch hugging a pillow. "But now the whole county sends me grandchildren. Not mine, but they feel like they are." The next morning Claire got ready to leave. Matthew looked better color in his cheeks, a sparkle in his eyes. "Agatha, can I come back again?" he asked. "Come back." Agatha handed Claire a bag of herbs. "This is for his immune system. Brew it like tea, give it morning and evening. And don't delay the lab work. The sooner you prove it, the better." Claire hugged her. "Thank you. I don't even know how to repay you." "Repay me by saving your son." The drive back felt shorter. Matthew talked the whole way about the hen, the stove, the snow outside the window. Claire listened and smiled, and felt something like hope rising inside her. Back in the city, she went straight to a private lab. Submitted the food for testing. "Results will be ready in 3 days," the receptionist said. "Can you do it, Rush?" "Rush is tomorrow. But it costs more." "Tomorrow." 3 days was too long. Every hour mattered. Then she brought Matthew back to the hospital. Dr. Robert met her in the hallway. Claire, how was your trip? Good. Find anything? Claire hesitated. Maybe. Robert, I want to ask one thing. Please don't let anyone visit Matthew. Anyone except me. Robert frowned. What happened? I can't say yet. But it's important. Very important. He looked at her for a long time. All right. I'll tell the staff. That evening Matthew ate none of the food his grandmother had sent. Only hospital food, bland, tasteless, but safe. His temperature didn't rise. The next day, it didn't either. And on the third day, the lab called. Claire Porter. Your samples are ready. You can pick up the results. Claire sat in her car in the lab parking lot, reading the report. The letters jumped in front of her eyes. Sample number 1, strawberry jam, presence of arsenic compounds detected at a concentration of 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. Exceeds the permissible limit by 30 times. Sample number 2, cookies, presence of arsenic compounds detected at a concentration of 0.2 milligrams per kilogram. Exceeds the permissible limit by 20 times. Sample number 3, meat patty, presence of arsenic compounds detected at a concentration of 0.25 milligrams per kilogram. Exceeds the permissible limit by 25 times. She sat there, unable to move. The report lay on her lap. The world outside the window kept going. People walked along the sidewalk, cars passed by, pigeons pecked at something near the curb. An ordinary day, ordinary life, and in her hands, proof that her mother-in-law had been systematically poisoning her son. Her phone rang. Kyle. Claire, Mom called. She says you're not answering her messages. I'm busy. She's worried about Matthew. Wants to bring him some pies. That won't be necessary. Claire, what's going on? You're acting strange. She closed her eyes. Kyle, we need to meet. We need to talk. What kind of talk? Not over the phone. Can you come to the hospital? When? Today. This evening. A pause. Okay. I'll come. That evening Claire sat in the hospital cafeteria, waiting for her ex-husband. Matthew was asleep. For the third day in a row, he had no fever. He had started eating again. He had started smiling. The doctors were surprised, but Claire said nothing. Not yet. Kyle walked in tall, slouched, with the beginnings of a bald spot, wearing the same jacket he'd worn back when they were married. Hi. Hi. Sit down. He sat across from her, watching her cautiously. What happened? Claire placed the lab report on the table. Read it. Kyle read for a long time. Then he looked up. What is this? An analysis of the food your mother was giving Matthew. I don't understand. Arsenic, Kyle. Your mother was adding arsenic to the food she made for our son. Kyle went pale. This is nonsense. This is a report from a certified lab. It's nonsense. My mother adores Matthew. She would never look at the numbers. 20 to 30 times over the limit. And every sample. Kyle jumped to his feet. You've lost your mind. You set this up on purpose to to what? Why would I set this up? I don't know. To take my son away. To keep me from seeing him. Claire looked at him, this man she had married at 22, had a child with, had lived with for almost 10 years. Kyle. Matthew was dying. The doctors couldn't figure out why. And now, after 3 days without her food, he's better. For the first time in 3 months better. That's not a coincidence. Kyle sat back down. Rubbed his face with his hands. This can't be happening. I thought the same. Why? Why would she do this? Claire remembered Agatha's words. Munchausen syndrome by proxy. An illness. Love that kills. There's a psychological disorder where a person harms someone close to them so they can then care for them. To feel needed. You're saying my mother is a psychopath? I'm saying she's ill. And that she has to be stopped. Kyle was silent, staring at the report. Then he said, I'll talk to her. No. What do you mean, no? If you talk to her, she'll deny everything. Or come up with an explanation. Or start hiding the evidence. We need to go to the police. The police? On my own mother? Kyle, she almost killed your son. He jumped up again. I'm not turning my mother in. Then I will. Claire Kyle, listen to me. I understand she's your mother. I understand you love her. But Matthew is my son. And I will not let anyone hurt him. Anyone. Kyle looked at her, and Claire saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Fear. Confusion. Pain. Give me time, he said finally. One day. I need to think. One day. He left. Claire stayed in the cafeteria, staring at the cold coffee in her cup. She didn't sleep all night. She lay beside Matthew on the narrow hospital cot, listening to his breathing. Steady. Calm. Alive. In the morning, Kyle called. I talked to her. Why? I asked you to wait. Listen. I talked to her, and she confessed to everything. Claire went silent. She cried, Kyle continued in a dull voice. Said she never wanted to hurt him. Said she just wanted him to be a little sick so she could take care of him. So she could feel needed. She said she loved him more than life. Kyle. I called an ambulance. A psychiatric one. They took her away. She didn't resist. Claire leaned against the wall. Her throat tightened. I'm sorry. So am I. A long pause. How's Matthew? Kyle asked. Better. Much better. Can I come see him? Of course. He's your son. Kyle arrived an hour later. He sat by Matthew's bed, holding his hand, reading him a dinosaur book. Matthew really laughed, for the first time in 3 months. Claire watched him and thought about how strangely life is arranged. How closely love and illness exist side by side, care and destruction, salvation and ruin. A week later, Matthew was discharged. His tests were normal, his weight was coming back, the fever was gone. An amazing case, the department head said at farewell. I still don't understand what it was. Sometimes it's better not to, Claire replied. She drove her son home, to their small third-floor apartment that smelled of old books and apples. Matthew watched the city rush by outside the window. Mom, are we going to visit Agatha again? Of course. In the summer, if you want. I want to. The chicken there is funny. And the stove is warm. And the stove is warm, Claire repeated. She thought about everything still ahead: court, statements, explanations, conversations with Matthew. One day, when he grew up, he would have to learn the truth about his grandmother. It would hurt. But that would be later. For now, the December sun broke through the clouds. Snow sparkled on rooftops. Matthew hummed a tune from a cartoon under his breath. Life went on. Dorothy was placed in a psychiatric clinic. Claire visited her once, a month later, when the doctors allowed it. She sat in the ward lounge, small, aged, in a hospital robe staring out the window. How is Matthew? She asked without turning around. He's healthy. Thank God. A long silence. Do you hate me? Claire thought before answering. No. Why? Because hate is too heavy. I don't have the strength for it. Dorothy finally turned around. Her eyes were empty, faded. I really didn't want to hurt him. I just couldn't live without him. When you divorced, I thought I'd die. And then he got sick, and I was needed again. I came over, took care of him, cooked. I was happy. Do you understand? Happy. Claire said nothing. It's scary, isn't it? What I'm saying. Yes. I'm scared too. Now I'm scared. Before, I wasn't. Before, it felt right. A nurse entered the lounge. Dorothy, it's time for your procedures. Her mother-in-law stood up and looked at Claire. Will you forgive me? Someday? I don't know. Dorothy nodded. and walked away small, hunched, Illinois. Claire watched her go and felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. In spring, when the snow melted and the first crocuses bloomed in the parks, she went back to Agatha. With Matthew now healthy, rosy-cheeked, cheerful, talking the whole way about the school he would start in the fall, about his friends in the yard, about the books he'd read. Agatha met them on the porch. The red hen scurried around her feet. "Look at you now," she said, looking at Matthew. "Those cheeks." "Agatha, can I feed the chicken?" "You can. The grain's in the entryway, and a sack." Matthew ran off. Claire stayed on the porch. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." "No need." "You did it yourself." "No. If it weren't for you, I never would have figured it out." Agatha smiled. "You would have. Sooner or later. A mother always knows when her child is in danger." They sat on the porch, drank tea, and watched Matthew chase the chicken around the yard. The sun warmed their faces. It smelled of spring, meltwater, young grass, anticipation. "Are you alone?" Agatha asked. "Yes." "Hard?" "It's fine. I'm used to it." "Back to work?" "Next week. Margaret already calls me every day." "Misses you?" "Says the maternity ward can't cope without me." "Good job." "Yes. A good one." Claire watched her son. He caught the chicken, pressed it to his chest, whispered something into its ear. The chicken resigned itself. "You know," Claire said, "I keep thinking about that woman. Rachel. The one who gave me your address. And? I think none of it was random. The blizzard. The birth on the highway. That address. Like someone was leading me to you." Agatha shook her head. "No one was leading you. It just happened. You were desperate, grabbed at a straw, and the straw turned out to be strong. It happens. Rarely, but it happens." "And Rachel? What happened to her?" "I don't know. But I do know one thing: she has a daughter now. And that's more than she had before." Claire nodded. She thought about that too, about how life isn't a straight line, but a knot where everything is connected. The blizzard connected to the birth to the address to the diagnosis to healing. "Agatha!" Matthew shouted. "Look, she laid an egg. Right into my hands." "Did she now?" "It's warm." Agatha laughed. "That means she likes you." That evening they left. Matthew didn't want to part with the chicken he had named Ginger. "We'll come back?" "We will." "You promise?" "I promise." The drive home was long. Matthew fell asleep in the back seat, hugging the jar of honey Agatha had given him. Claire drove and thought about what lay ahead: work, night shifts, deliveries, the endless chain of new lives coming into this world. Matthew. School. Vacations. First love, first disappointments, first victories. Maybe someone else someday. A person who would look at her the way Kyle once did, but for real. Or maybe not. And that would be okay too. The main thing was that Matthew was alive. The main thing was that he was healthy. The main thing was that she had been able to protect him. The city appeared on the horizon, a scatter of lights in the evening sky. "Mom," Matthew mumbled sleepily. "Are we home?" "Almost, sweetheart. Almost home." She drove into the city, turned onto the familiar street, parked by their building. She lifted her son out of the car. He wrapped his arms around her neck and rested his head on her shoulder, just like he had 3 months ago when she brought him to Agatha. "Mom." "Yes?" "I love you." Claire smiled. "I love you too." They climbed to the 3rd floor. Claire opened the door, stepped into the apartment, turned on the light. Everything was in its place. Matthew's toys on the shelf, her books on the table, the photo on the wall, her, Matthew, and the neighbor's red cat who was always sneaking in to visit. Home. Claire tucked Matthew into bed, covered him with a blanket with ducklings. 19 ducklings, he said. "I remember." "Go to sleep. Will you tell me a story?" "Which one?" "About a princess and a dragon." Once upon a time there was a princess, Claire began. She was very brave and not afraid of dragons at all. Matthew fell asleep before she finished. Claire sat beside his bed, watching him breathe. Even. Calm. Alive. City lights were coming on outside the window. An ordinary evening of an ordinary day was beginning. Somewhere in a maternity ward, a woman was screaming in labor. Somewhere in an apartment upstairs, neighbors were arguing. Somewhere on the street, a dog was barking. Life went on. Claire stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the city. At this big, noisy, living world where there was so much grief and so much joy, so much illness and so much healing, so much betrayal and so much love. She thought about going back to work in a week. About delivering hundreds more babies. About how every time a new person entered the world, she would be the first to meet them. She thought about Rachel, the woman with empty eyes and marks on her wrists who gave birth to a daughter in a blizzard on the highway. She thought about Agatha, the doctor who had gone off into the wilderness and become a healer, because sometimes people don't come for medicine but for a human gaze. She thought about Dorothy, the woman who loved so fiercely that her love turned into poison. She thought about Kyle, the man who had remained a stranger even when he was the closest one. She thought about Matthew. About her son, who had almost died and survived, who counted ducklings on his blanket and named a chicken Ginger. She thought about herself, about a 34-year-old woman, a midwife, a mother, just a person. And for the first time in a long while, she felt that everything would be okay. Not perfect. Not cloudless. Not like in a fairy tale, but okay. Just okay. Claire stepped away from the window, turned off the light, lay down on the couch. Exhaustion hit instantly. 3 months of fear, 3 months of sleepless nights, 3 months of fighting for her son's life. She closed her eyes and fell asleep. In the morning, she woke to Matthew standing over her, shaking her shoulder. Mom, wake up. I'm hungry. Claire opened her eyes. Sunlight flooded the room. Matthew was looking at her, healthy, rosy-cheeked, alive. Good morning, she said. Morning. Mom, can I have pancakes? You can. She got up and went to the kitchen. Took out flour, eggs, milk, ordinary things, ordinary actions. Matthew hovered nearby, getting in the way, dropping utensils, laughing. Mom, when are we going to Agatha's again? In the summer. Why not now? Because school is starting soon. You need to get ready. I don't want to go to school. You do. I don't. You do. There will be friends. And books. And the teacher will tell you about dinosaurs. Really? Really? Matthew thought for a moment. Okay. Then I do want to. Claire smiled and flipped a pancake in the pan. An ordinary morning. An ordinary day. An ordinary life. And that was the greatest happiness of all. 6 months later, in September, Matthew started first grade. Claire stood by the school steps, watching him climb them with a huge bouquet of asters. Mom, don't cry, he shouted. I'll be back. I'm not crying. You are. She laughed and wiped her eyes. Go on. You'll be late. Matthew ran off and disappeared through the doors. Claire stayed standing among the other parents, just as confused and just as happy. A woman stopped beside her, young, thin, holding a child. First time? The woman asked. Yes. Mine too. It's scary. A little, the woman smiled. My name's Rachel. Claire flinched and looked closer. No. Not her. A different face. Different eyes. I'm Claire. Nice to meet you. They stood there a bit longer, two strangers by the school entrance. Then they went their separate ways. Claire walked home. She looked at the autumn city, at the yellow leaves, the gray sky, the people hurrying about their business. She thought about how life isn't a story with a happy ending. It's just life with good days and bad ones. With victories and defeats. With love and loss. But sometimes there are moments when everything is right. When the sun shines exactly the way it should. When a child laughs exactly the way he should. When the heart beats evenly and calmly. And that is already a lot. That is already everything. Claire reached home, climbed to the 3rd floor, opened the door. Empty. Quiet. Just a beam of sunlight on the floor, dust motes dancing in it. She sat down on the couch, closed her eyes, and smiled. She was still sitting there, the smile lingering on her lips, when the phone rang. Margaret. Claire, how are you? Took him in? I did. Cried? A little. Everyone cries. When I took mine in, I thought I wouldn't survive it. Now he's 35 and calls me once a month, if he remembers. Listen, can you come in today? We're swamped again. Natasha's out sick, Susan's on vacation. I can. Good girl. Be here by 2. Claire hung up. Got up, went to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror. 34 years old. Wrinkles around her eyes from laughter or from tears, hard to tell now. A gray hair at her temple when had that appeared. Tired eyes, but alive. That was the main thing, alive. She took a shower, got dressed, drank coffee. Ordinary actions that brought her back to ordinary life. Outside, the city buzzed, children shouting somewhere below, cars passing. September 1st. The beginning of something new. She arrived at the maternity ward at 2, just as promised. Margaret met her in the hallway, small, gray-haired, forever anxious. Thank God. She's been laboring for 6 hours in delivery room 3, can't push him out. She's so young, first birth, scared of everything. I'm on my way. Claire changed, put on her gown and cap, and entered the delivery room. A girl lay on the bed. There was no other word for her, about 20, no older. Pale, drenched in sweat, eyes wide with fear. Hello. I'm Claire. I'll be with you. It hurts, the girl whispered. It hurts so much. I know. What's your name? Michelle. Michelle, listen to me. Giving birth hurts. But you can do this. Women have been giving birth for thousands of years, and you will too. I'll stay with you. Okay? Michelle nodded and clutched Claire's hand. Don't leave. I won't. The labor lasted another 4 hours. Claire held Michelle's hand, talked to her, breathed with her. When the contractions became especially intense, Michelle screamed and cried, and Claire stroked her hair and repeated, "You're doing great. You're doing it. You've got this." At 8 in the evening, a boy was born. 3.2 kilos, healthy, with a powerful cry. There he is, Claire said, placing the baby on Michelle's chest. Your son. Michelle looked at him and cried happy, messy tears. He's beautiful. He is. Thank you. You did amazing. Claire stepped out of the delivery room, pulled off her gloves, leaned against the wall. Her legs ached, her back throbbed, but inside was that special feeling she did this work for. The feeling that she had done something important. That she had helped a new person come into the world. How did it go? Margaret peeked out of the staff room. A boy. 3.2 kilos. Everyone's alive. Good job. Go have some tea. The staff room was quiet. Claire sat down on the sagging couch and picked up a cup of tea that had gone cold. A newspaper lay on the table. One of the doctors had brought it in and never finished it. The headline on the front page read, "A new perinatal center opens in the city." Have you read it? Margaret sat beside her. They say the equipment is German, the rooms are like a spa. They're poaching our specialists. So? Nothing. I went on a tour. It's pretty. But there's no soul. Everything is white, sterile, like an operating room. And giving birth isn't surgery. It's life. Claire nodded. She understood what Margaret meant. Their maternity ward was old and worn down, with faucets that always leaked and beds that always squeaked. But the people here loved what they did. They met every new person like a miracle. Claire, Margaret lowered her voice. How's Matthew? Good. He started school today. First grade? Yes. My God, time flies. I remember you pregnant, huge belly, and you still came in for shifts. I kept sending you home and you kept digging in your heels. I remember. You delivered him yourself, remember? Well, not literally yourself, of course, but you were right there. You were the first one to see him. Claire remembered. She remembered screaming from pain, gripping someone's hand, hearing her son's first cry. How they placed him on her chest, small, wrinkled, impossibly beautiful. I remember. And now he's in school. He grew up. He did. Her phone rang. Matthew. Mom. Mom, where are you? At work, sweetheart. How's school? It's awesome. Our teacher is Mrs. Patterson. She's nice. And I sat with Leo. He likes dinosaurs too. And they gave us handwriting worksheets, and I already wrote 3 letters. Which ones? A, B, and C. Mrs. Patterson said I have nice handwriting. Claire smiled. Good job. Mom, when are you coming home? Late, sweetheart. You're at Helen's, right? Yeah. She made pasta. With cheese. Is it good? Really good. Mom, can I walk to school by myself tomorrow? Leo said he walks by himself, and I want to, too. We'll see. That means no. That means we'll see. Fine. Mom, I love you. I love you too. She ended the call. Margaret was watching her with a smile. Good kid. Yeah. You're raising him alone? Yeah. Hard? It's fine. I'm used to it. Margaret sighed. I raised mine alone too. My husband left when Samuel was 3. Said, I can't do this anymore, I'm tired. Can you imagine? He was tired. And I wasn't. I worked, raised him, carried it all. And we survived. Samuel is the one who calls once a month. That's him. Raised him for nothing. They laughed. The hallway got noisy. Another patient in labor had arrived. Let's go, Margaret said. Work's waiting. That night Claire delivered 3 more babies, 2 girls and a boy. All healthy, all screaming so loud you could hear them in the hallway. She got home at 6 in the morning, when the city was just starting to wake up. Matthew was asleep at Helen's. Her friend lived in the next building and was happy to watch him when Claire had shifts. Helen didn't have kids of her own, and she treated Matthew like a nephew. Claire unlocked her apartment. Silence. Emptiness. She took off her jacket, walked into the room, and dropped onto the couch. Without undressing, without even taking off her shoes, she fell asleep instantly. She woke up to someone bouncing on her. Mom. Mom, wake up. It's already 9 o'clock. Matthew. Of course. How did you get in? Helen brought me. She said you were tired and I shouldn't wake you up, but I didn't listen. I can tell. Mom, I had breakfast at Helen's, but I'm hungry again. Can I have a sandwich? Claire sat up and rubbed her eyes. You can. She got up and went to the kitchen. Matthew spun around her, talking about school, about Leo, about Mrs. Patterson. About how they drew in class, and he drew a dinosaur, and Mrs. Patterson said it was really beautiful, even though Leo said dinosaurs can't be blue. But Matthew said they can, because nobody knows what color dinosaurs were, since nobody ever saw them. Mom, are you listening? I'm listening. Then why aren't you answering? Because you're not letting me get a word in. Matthew laughed. Okay, talk. Talk about what? I don't know. Anything. Claire made him a sandwich, bread, butter, cheese, ham, and set it in front of him. Eat. Thanks. Mom, why are you so tired? I worked all night. You were delivering babies again? I wasn't delivering. Other women were. But you helped? Yeah. That's a good job. Yeah. A good one. Matthew chewed his sandwich and swung his legs under the table. Sunlight streamed through the window onto the top of his head, making his hair look lighter, even though it was really a dark blonde. Mom, did Dad call? I don't know. I was asleep. He didn't call me. I checked. Claire stayed quiet. After what happened with Dorothy, Kyle had pulled away. He came to see Matthew when he could, but less and less. Like he couldn't look at his son without thinking of his mother. Of what she had done. Maybe he's busy, Claire said. Maybe, Matthew agreed. Mom, when is Grandma coming back? Claire froze. Which grandma? Dad's mom. The one who's sick. You said she was sick and in the hospital. Yes, she's sick. When is she going to stop being sick? Claire sat down across from her son and looked him in the eyes. Matthew, Grandma is very sick. Not in her body, in her mind. She did bad things without understanding what she was doing. That's why she needs treatment for a long time. What bad things? How do you explain to a 6-year-old that his grandmother tried to kill him? That her love was so twisted, so sick, it became poison? She gave you food that made you feel sick. Not on purpose. I mean, she didn't want to hurt you. She just didn't understand what she was doing. Matthew frowned. So that's why I was sick? Yes. But she loved me. She always said she loved me. She did. In her own way. But sometimes love can be wrong. Sick. When someone loves so much that they hurt the person they love. Matthew was quiet for a long time. He chewed his sandwich and stared out the window. That's weird, he said finally. Yeah. It is. But I'm not mad at her. Why not? I don't know. She's sick. You can't be mad at sick people. Mrs. Patterson said you have to be kind to people who are sick. Claire felt her eyes sting. You're a very smart boy. I know. He smiled wide, open, without a trace of fear or resentment. And Claire thought that sometimes children are wiser than adults, that they can forgive easily and naturally, without long debates and inner battles. They just forgive and keep living. That evening, when Matthew fell asleep, Claire pulled an old photo album from the closet. She hadn't opened it in a long time, afraid. Afraid of the memories, afraid of what she would feel. But now she opened it. The first photos were the wedding. Her in a white dress, Kyle in a suit. Young, happy, stupid. Dorothy beside them, smiling, holding a bouquet. Back then Claire thought she hadn't just gained a husband, she'd gained a family. A second mother. Then came the pregnancy. Claire with a huge belly in the maternity ward, surrounded by co-workers. Kyle with flowers. Dorothy holding little booties she had knitted herself. Matthew's birth. A tiny bundle in someone's hands. The first smile, first steps, first word. And in every photo Dorothy. Beside them. Always beside them. Claire stared at the pictures and tried to understand when it started, when love turned into illness. Was she sick from the beginning, or did something happen, something broke? She remembered Dorothy crying when she and Kyle divorced. Begging her not to take her grandson. Saying, he's the only thing I have left. Maybe that was when it began. When she felt she was losing him. When the fear of loss became stronger than common sense. Claire closed the album and put it back in the closet. The past was the past. She had to keep living. Fall flew by. Matthew went to school, Claire worked in the maternity ward. Ordinary life, ordinary rhythm. Morning breakfast, school, work. Evening dinner, homework, bedtime story. Weekends park, movies, sometimes the zoo. Kyle showed up less and less. Once every 2 weeks, he'd take Matthew for a few hours, then bring him back. Claire saw how he had changed, older, gaunter, a kind of emptiness in his eyes. How's your mom? She asked one day. The same. Doctors say there's no improvement. I'm sorry. Kyle looked at her. Are you? I am. He was quiet for a moment. I can't forgive her. I try, and I can't. Every time I look at Matthew, I think about what she did to him. And I can't. Is that normal? I don't know. It's not normal. She's my mother. I should have protected her. From what? I don't know. From herself. From her illness. I should have noticed sooner. Claire didn't know what to say. She understood his guilt, but she couldn't share it. For her, the most important thing was that Matthew was alive. Everything else was secondary. "You're not to blame," she said. "Easy for you to say." "No. It's not easy. But it's true." Kyle left. Claire watched him go, his hunched figure, the gait of a man carrying a burden too heavy for his shoulders. Maybe someday he would be able to forgive both himself and his mother. Or maybe not. Either way, it was his path. She couldn't walk it for him. Winter came early. The first snow fell at the end of October. Matthew was thrilled building snowmen, sledding down hills. Claire stood nearby, watching him laugh, watching him tumble into snowdrifts, watching him wave at her with his mitten. "Mom, look at my snowman. He's beautiful. He has a carrot nose. Helen gave it to me." The snowman was crooked, with mismatched pebble eyes and twigs for arms. But Matthew looked at it with such pride, as if he'd created a masterpiece. "What's his name?" "Frosty." "Good name." "Mom, are snowmen alive?" "No, sweetheart. But in cartoons they are." "In cartoons, yes. In real life, no." Matthew thought about it. "That's too bad. I wish Frosty were alive. We'd be friends. You have Leo. Leo is different. Leo is a person. Frosty is a snowman. It would be interesting to be friends with a snowman." Claire smiled. Children's logic simple and undeniable. "Let's go home." "You're cold." "I'm not cold." "Your nose is red." "That's not from the cold. That's from happiness." She laughed, took his hand, and led him home. The snow crunched under their feet, streetlights glowed yellow, and warm smells drifted from window steaks sizzling somewhere, cookies baking somewhere else. An ordinary winter evening. An ordinary life. Ordinary happiness. In December, Agatha called. "Hello, Claire. How are you?" "We're good. Matthew's in school, healthy. I'm working." "I'm glad to hear it. Listen, the reason I'm calling, there was a woman who came by. Young, with a child. She said you know her." "Rachel." Claire froze. "Rachel? That Rachel?" "That one. With her daughter. The girl is already 1 year old, can you imagine? Walking, saying mama. How is she?" "Good. Looks better. She says they added time for the escape, but then there was an early release program and she got out. Now she lives with her sister and works at the post office." "And why did she come?" "To visit. Said I saved her life. And she remembered you too. Asked how you were, how your son was. I told her everything was good. She was happy to hear it." Claire was silent. She thought about Rachel, about that night in the blizzard, about the birth in the car, about eyes that held no fear, only exhaustion and resignation. Tell her I'm glad." "I will. And thank you, Agatha. For everything." "No need. Will you come in the summer?" "Definitely. Matthew talks about nothing else. I'll be waiting." Claire hung up and walked to the window. Snow was falling outside slowly, beautifully, like in a movie. The city was wrapping itself in a white blanket, and everything looked clean, new, untouched. A year ago, she had stood at this same window, not knowing whether her son would be alive in a month. A year ago, she had been on the edge of despair, ready to grab onto any straw. And now everything was different. Matthew was alive. Matthew was healthy. Matthew went to school, drew dinosaurs, was friends with Leo, built snowmen. Life went on. They celebrated New Year's, just the two of them. Claire made a salad, bought a cake, put up a small Christmas tree. Matthew decorated it with ornaments, old ones, from Claire's grandmother, that she'd kept since childhood. "Mom, where is this ornament from?" "From my mom." "Your grandma? The one who died?" "Yes." "Was she nice?" "Very nice." "Better than Dad's mom?" Claire paused. "Different." She was different. Matthew hung the ornament on a branch, stepped back, looked at it. It's pretty. Very. At 11 they sat down at the table. Claire turned on the TV. There was a concert on, something New Year's themed and cheerful. Matthew chewed his salad and talked nonstop. Mom, do you think Santa is real? Leo says he's not. He says people dress up. And what do you think? I don't know. But someone brings the presents. They do. Then he's real. Claire smiled. She loved this childlike logic, simple, clear, without unnecessary doubt. At midnight they drank. Claire had champagne, Matthew had apple juice and made wishes. What did you wish for? I can't say, or it won't come true. Right. And you? I can't say either. Matthew laughed. We both have secrets. Yes. Both of us. They watched fireworks from the window, distant, small, but beautiful. Matthew pressed against her, warm and sleepy. Mom. Yes? I love you. I love you too. And I'm glad I didn't die. Claire hugged him tighter. I'm glad too. Very glad. Matthew fell asleep in her arms. She carried him to bed and covered him with a duckling blanket. 19 ducklings, she whispered, and smiled. January was cold and dark. Claire worked a lot. The maternity ward was always overwhelmed after the holidays. She came home late, exhausted, and in the morning got up and went back to work again. But she didn't complain. This was the right kind of exhaustion. The exhaustion of doing something that mattered. One day during a shift, Margaret came up to her. Claire, someone's asking for you. Who? I don't know. Some woman. Young. Says you helped her once. Claire stepped into the lobby and froze. Rachel was standing by the window. That same Rachel. With a child in her arms, a little girl in a pink hat. Hello, Rachel said. Hello. They looked at each other, two women brought together by chance, by a blizzard, by a birth on the highway, by a healer's address. I wanted to thank you, Rachel said. In person. For what? For everything. For that night. For not turning away. For the address. You gave me the address. And you gave my daughter life. The little girl looked at Claire with big eyes. Dark, like her mother's. What's her name? Claire. After you. Claire felt her eyes sting. It's a beautiful name. The most beautiful. They sat down on a bench in the lobby. Rachel talked about prison, about the escape, about early release. About the sister who took her in. About working at the post office, about a small room in a dorm, about plans for the future. I want to study, she said. To become a seamstress. I sewed in prison, I liked it. If it works out, I'll open my own workshop. It will work out. You think so? I'm sure. Rachel smiled. And Claire saw it in those eyes that had once been empty and tired. There was now light. Living, warm light. And how is your son? Rachel asked. Agatha said he recovered. Yes. Completely. Thank God. Thank God. Little Claire reached out and grabbed Big Claire's finger. Tightly, instinctively, like a baby does. She likes you, Rachel said. She's usually afraid of strangers. I'm not a stranger. No. You're not. They sat a little longer. Then Rachel left. She had to get to work. Claire watched her walk down the hallway with her daughter in her arms and thought about how strangely lives intertwine. A year ago, this woman had been an escaped inmate giving birth in a blizzard on the highway. And now she was a mother, a worker, a person with plans for the future. All because one day a midwife answered a call in bad weather. Or maybe it had all been meant to be that way. Who knows? Claire returned to the delivery room. Another woman was already screaming. Help! It hurts. I'm coming, Claire said. I'm coming. Spring arrived late. Snow still lay on the ground in April, and only in May did the first leaves begin to unfold. Matthew was finishing first grade, getting top marks, being friends with Leo, drawing dinosaurs in every spare notebook. Mom, did you know Tyrannosaurus had feathers? No. Scientists say they did. Maybe it was pink. A pink Tyrannosaurus? Why not? Nobody really knows. Claire laughed. Her boy was full of life, energy, curiosity. It was hard to believe that a year ago he had been lying in a hospital bed, fading away. Mom, are we going to Agatha's? We are. During break. Yes. I miss Ginger. Ginger is the chicken? Yes. My favorite chicken. In June, when school ended and summer break began, they went to Quiet Springs. The road felt familiar, the same trees, the same villages, the same dogs on chains. Only now everything was green, alive, real. Agatha met them on the porch. She had aged a little over the year, but her eyes were the same, clear, attentive. You made it. We did. Matthew ran up to her and hugged her. Agatha, where's Ginger? In the coop. Go take a look. Matthew ran off. Claire stayed on the porch. How are you? Good. Getting by. And you? I can see you've rested. A little. Come on, let's have some tea. They sat in the kitchen, drank tea with honey, talked about life. About work, about Matthew, about Rachel, who had come by in the winter. She's a good girl, Agatha said. Hard life, but a good soul. Yes. A good one. And you? Still on your own? Claire smiled. On my own. But I'm okay. Okay isn't the same as happy. Maybe. But for now, okay is enough. We'll see what comes next. Agatha nodded. That's right. Don't rush. Life will put everything in its place. Matthew came running back, holding the chicken. Mom, look. Ginger recognized me. I see. She laid an egg. Right into my hands. Again? Yes. She only does that with me. Agatha laughed. You're special to her. I know. They spent a week in Quiet Springs. Matthew ran around the yard, played with the chicken, went down to the river, helped Agatha in the garden. Claire truly rested for the first time in a long while. Slept until noon, read books, walked through the woods. One evening they sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was pink and gold, impossibly beautiful. Agatha, Matthew said. Are you a magician? No. I'm just a doctor. But you cured me. Everyone said I wouldn't get better, and you did. Agatha was quiet for a moment. I didn't cure you. I just found what was hurting you. Your mom cured you. Matthew looked at Claire. Really? Really? Then that means you're a magician? Claire hugged him. I'm not a magician. I'm just your mom. That's the same thing. She laughed and thought that maybe he was right. Maybe a mother's love really was magic, the only real magic in this world. When they were leaving, Agatha gave Claire a small bundle of herbs. This is for sleep. Brew it at night, you'll sleep like a baby. Thank you. And one more thing. Agatha looked her straight in the eyes. You're a good mother. One of the best I've ever seen. Don't forget that. Claire hugged her. Thank you for everything. Come back again. We will. Definitely. The drive back was easy. Matthew slept in the back seat, hugging a jar of honey and a carton of eggs from Ginger. Claire drove and thought about what lay ahead. Second grade. New shifts. New deliveries. New lives coming into this world. Maybe new love. Someday. If fate wanted it. Or maybe not. And that would be okay too. The main thing was that Matthew was with her. The main thing was that he was alive. The main thing was that they were together. The city appeared on the horizon, familiar shapes, familiar lights. Mom, Matthew murmured sleepily. Are we home? Almost, sweetheart. Almost. She drove into the city, turned onto their street, stopped by the building. She carried Matthew out of the car and up the stairs. Home. Their small home on the third floor. Claire opened the door, carried Matthew into the room, laid him on the bed. covered him with the duckling blanket. 19, Matthew whispered in his sleep. 19 ducklings. Claire smiled. And she understood this was it. This was the happiness everyone was searching for. Small, quiet. Just a sleeping child, a warm home, a quiet evening. Just life. She walked over to the window and looked out at the city, at this big, living, real world. And she felt peace. Real, deep peace. Everything would be okay. That thought stayed with her as she stepped away from the window and sat down on the couch. Behind the wall, the neighbors were playing music softly, something old, one of the songs her mother used to sing. Claire listened. Streisand's voice, it seemed. The way we were. Their neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, a 70-year-old widow, loved that song and played it in the evenings. Claire closed her eyes. Fatigue rolled over her in a gentle wave, the good kind, from a long drive, from sun and fresh air. She dozed off right there on the couch, without changing clothes, and dreamed of something bright and summery, smelling of cut grass and filled with chicken clucking. She woke up in the morning to her phone ringing. Margaret. Claire, when are you back? In 3 days. My vacation isn't over yet. Oh, sorry, I completely forgot. Rest up. How's Matthew? Still sleeping. Let him sleep. Kids should get plenty of sleep in summer. I'm telling you this as a grandma. I've got grandkids just like that, impossible to wake. Claire smiled. Okay. See you soon. She got up, went to the kitchen, and put the kettle on. Outside, the sun was already bright, and the city was waking up. Cars rushed by, children shouted in the yard, a dog barked somewhere. An ordinary morning. An ordinary day. Matthew woke up around 10, ran out of his room tousled, with a pillow mark on his cheek. Mom, I slept through breakfast. You didn't miss anything. Sit down, I'll feed you. She made him scrambled eggs, the kind with tomatoes and cheese that he loved. Matthew ate and told her his dream. I dreamed Ginger learned how to fly. And we flew over the village, and Agatha waved at us from below. That's a beautiful dream. It really is. Mom, why don't chickens fly? They do. Just not very high or very far. Why not? Because they don't need to. They found food on the ground and stayed there. That's sad. Why? Because flying is cool. I wouldn't give up flying just for food. Claire laughed. You would if you were hungry. Nope. I'd fly and eat at the same time. Like seagulls. After breakfast they went outside. The courtyard was full of kids' summer break, freedom, happiness. Matthew immediately found Leo, and they ran off to the playground. Claire sat down on a bench with the other moms. Hello, said the woman next to her. The same one Claire had seen at the school on September 1st. You're Matthew's mom, right? I'm Kate, Leo's. Claire. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Leo talks about Matthew nonstop. Matthew this, Matthew that. Did you give him a dinosaur for his birthday? Yes. A Tyrannosaurus. He sleeps with it now. Won't let it go. Claire smiled. They sat together watching the boys race around the playground, two skinny, sunburned creatures full of energy and joy. Are you raising Matthew on your own? Kate asked. Yes. Me too. My husband left when Leo was 2. Said he wasn't ready for responsibility. Can you imagine? Not ready. But I guess I was ready. Sounds familiar. Yeah. They're all the same. Well, not all. But many. Kate was talkative. In half an hour she managed to tell her about her job, an accountant at a construction firm, about her ex-husband pays child support but rarely shows up, about her mom lives in another city, can't help, and about summer plans, wanted to go to the sea but didn't have the money. And where do you work? She finally asked. At a maternity hospital. I'm a midwife. Wow. That must be hard. Depends. But it's interesting. I could never do that. I'm scared of blood. You get used to it. Kate looked at her with curiosity. You're so calm. Like nothing ever gets to you. Claire smirked. It gets to me. A lot. I've just learned not to show it. The boys ran up out of breath, sweaty, happy. Mom, we're hungry. Let's go home, I'll feed you. Can Leo come with us? Claire looked at Kate. Is that okay? Of course. If it's not a problem. Not a problem. That's how Matthew got a best friend, and Claire got a friend. They started seeing each other more often, walking together, sometimes having tea, swapping recipes, and complaints about life. Kate was simpler than Claire, laughed louder, cried more easily, didn't hide her emotions. Do you ever get angry? She asked once. I do. It doesn't show. I get angry on the inside. On the outside, I keep my face. Why? Habit. When you work in a maternity ward, you can't show fear or anger. Women in labor feel it. They start to panic. Kate shook her head. I couldn't do that. I wear everything on my face. Leo says he always knows what mood I'm in. That's not a bad thing. At least it's honest. Honest, yes. But inconvenient. Especially at work. My boss yells, and I start crying. I hate myself for it. Don't hate yourself. That's who you are. Kate looked at her. You know, you're kind of strange. In a good way. Like you're wise or something. Even though we're the same age, right? I'm 34. And I'm 32. Almost the same. But you seem older. Not on the outside, on the inside. Claire didn't answer. She didn't feel wise, just tired, someone who had been through a lot. But maybe that was wisdom, experience that had settled deep inside. August was hot. Claire returned from vacation and went back to work. The maternity ward greeted her with its familiar noise, screams, groans, newborn cries. Welcome back. Margaret hugged her. Get some rest? Yes. I can see it. You're tanned, you look better. But get ready, we're swamped. 3 women in labor already, 2 more on the way. And Claire plunged back into work, into the familiar rhythm that had been her life for so many years. Contractions, pushing, a baby's cry. A mother's tears, nurses rushing around, the smell of antiseptic. Life entering the world, again and again. That day she delivered 4 babies. 2 girls, 2 boys. All healthy, all crying. In the evening, when the shift ended, she sat in the staff room drinking tea. Tired, legs aching, back sore, but inside, everything felt right. Claire? A young nurse, Emily, peeked into the room. Someone's asking for you. A man. What man? I don't know. He says it's personal. Claire frowned. She got up and went to the lobby. A man stood by the window, tall, dark-haired, in a simple jacket and jeans. He was looking out at the street. When Claire approached, he turned around, and she recognized him. The same truck driver. The one who picked up Rachel on the highway, the one who held the flashlight while Claire delivered the baby in the car. Hello, he said. You probably don't remember me. I do. You gave Rachel a ride. That night, in the blizzard. He nodded. My name's James. James Miller. But just James is fine. Claire. I know, he said. Rachel told me. They stood facing each other, 2 strangers connected by one night a year ago. Why did you come? Claire asked. I wanted to thank you. In person. For what? For that night. For not being scared. For what you did. Claire shook her head. I was just doing my job. No. You did more than that. He looked at her directly, openly, without embarrassment. His eyes were gray with a warm undertone. Can I buy you a coffee? He asked. If you have time. Claire wanted to say no. She was exhausted. She wanted to go home to Matthew. But something stopped her. Maybe his look. Maybe his voice. Maybe just curiosity. Okay. They went to the cafe across from the maternity ward, small, cozy, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh pastries. They sat at a table by the window. James ordered coffee, Claire ordered tea. Do you come here often? She asked. No. I'm from another city. I came just for this. Just to thank me? Yes. Claire was surprised. That's a long way. Why go through all that? James was quiet for a moment. That night changed my life. I was driving down the highway thinking about how tired I was. Tired of the road, tired of being alone, tired of everything. I was thinking maybe I should quit. And then I saw her. Rachel. On the shoulder, in the snow. Huge belly. And I realized no. Not now. Right now someone needs help. He picked up his cup and turned it in his hands. When you showed up, when you delivered that baby, when that little girl cried, I understood something important. Life isn't about being tired. It's about what you do. Who you help. Claire listened without speaking. I thought about you for a long time after that. About how calm you were. How you just did what you had to do. No fear, no panic. You just did it. That's my job. No. It's more than a job. It's a calling. Claire felt something shift inside her. She wasn't used to words like that. To that kind of attention. Do you have a family? She asked, trying to change the subject. I did. My wife left 5 years ago. Said she couldn't live with a man who was never home. Being a truck driver isn't a job, it's a way of life. Kids? No. We didn't get the chance. They fell quiet. The waitress brought their order coffee, tea, a plate of cookies. And you? James asked. A son. 7 years old. Matthew. His father? My ex-husband. He doesn't come around much. James nodded. He didn't pry. Claire was grateful for that. Can I call you? He asked. Sometime. Just to talk. Claire looked at him, this stranger with gray eyes who'd come from another city just to say thank you. And she thought about how life sometimes throws you strange meetings. Unexpected ones. Unexplainable ones. You can. She wrote her number on a napkin and handed it to him. Thank you, he said. For everything. You're welcome. He left. Claire stayed sitting in the cafe, staring out the window. Outside, it was getting dark, streetlights flickering on. An ordinary evening. An ordinary life. But something had changed. Something small, barely noticeable, but important. She finished her tea and went home. Matthew was waiting for her at the door, as always. Mom, you took forever. I got held up. I'm hungry. I'll feed you. She cooked dinner while Matthew sat at the table and told her about his day, about Leo, about the courtyard, about the book he'd started reading. Claire listened and smiled, thinking about those gray eyes, the napkin with the number, the words, "Can I call you?" Maybe nothing would come of it. Maybe he'd never call. Or maybe he would. Time would tell. James called a week later. In the evening, after Matthew was already asleep. Hi. It's James. Remember me? I do. I'm on a run right now. I'm driving through your city. I thought maybe we could meet. When? Tomorrow. In the evening. If you're free. Claire checked her calendar. Tomorrow was her day off. Matthew would be with Kate, they'd arranged it. Okay. They met at the same cafe. James looked tired, shadows under his eyes, stubble on his chin. But he was smiling. Glad to see you. Same. They ordered dinner and talked about different things, work, life, the roads he'd traveled for 20 years. I started when I was 19, he told her. My dad was a truck driver, my granddad was a truck driver. Family business, you could say. Do you like it? I used to. The freedom, the road, new places. But now I'm tired. I want to stop. Settle somewhere. Why don't you? I don't know. Habit, I guess. Fear. If I stop, what will I do? Who will I be? Claire understood him. She was afraid of stopping too. She'd spent her whole life running from one delivery to the next, from one shift to the next. Like if she stopped, something terrible would happen. I think, she said, sometimes you have to stop to understand where you're running. James looked at her. Are you wise? No. I'm just tired of running. They laughed. And Claire felt it easy. With him, it was easy. Simple. Natural. They saw each other all summer. Whenever James passed through the city, they'd have dinner together, walk in the park, talk. He told her about the roads, she told him about the maternity ward. He laughed at her stories, she laughed at his. Matthew met him in September. James came for the weekend on purpose, not for a run. Mom, who is that? Matthew asked, staring at the tall man in their entryway. This is James. My friend. Friend? Yes. Matthew looked him over. James crouched down so they were at eye level. Hi. You must be Matthew. Yeah. Are you really Mom's friend? I really am. Do you like dinosaurs? I do. Especially Tyrannosaurus. Matthew lit up. I do too. Mom, he likes Tyrannosaurus. After that, James became part of their lives. He came when he could. Helped around the house, fixed faucets, assembled furniture. Played dinosaurs with Matthew, read bedtime stories. And Claire watched her son grow attached to him easily, naturally, without resistance. Mom, is James going to live with us? Matthew asked one day. I don't know, sweetheart. Not right now. Why not? Because he works far away. He drives all over the country. What if he stops driving? Then maybe. Matthew thought about it. I'd like him to live with us. He's nice. He is. In winter, James proposed. Not with a ring, not on one knee, he just said it one evening when they were sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. Claire, I want to be with you. Always. Not only when I pass through. She was silent. I found a job here. At a logistics company. Not as a driver dispatch. Less money, but a home. Every evening home. Are you sure? Yes. And what about the road? The freedom? Freedom isn't the road. Freedom is having somewhere to come back to. Claire looked at him, this man who'd been a stranger a year ago and was now part of her life. And she felt it, yes. This was right. This was what she'd been waiting for without even knowing it. Yes, she said. Yes. He hugged her. Tight, warm. Matthew ran out of the bedroom. What happened? Why are you hugging? Because James is going to live with us, Claire said. Really? Really? Matthew jumped onto both of them, hugging, pressing close. Yay! Now we have a real family. James looked at Claire. Claire looked back at him. A real family. Yes. Exactly. They had the wedding in Spring, small, quiet, just close people. Margaret was the witness, Kate was the maid of honor. Matthew carried the rings and was incredibly proud of it. Mom, so now James is my dad? He's your stepdad. And that's like a dad? Almost. Then let him be dad. James heard him. He crouched in front of Matthew. You want to call me dad? Yes. If I can. You can. Matthew hugged him. And Claire saw tears shining in James's eyes. Life went on ordinary, real, happy. In the summer they all went to Quiet Springs together. Agatha met them on the porch. And who's this? She asked, looking at James. This is my husband, Claire said. Husband? Well, look at that. Finally. Why finally? Because it was time. You were on your own too long. Agatha liked him right away. They sat on the porch, drank tea, talked. Matthew ran around the yard chasing Ginger. Good man, Agatha told Claire when James went to help fix the fence. Reliable. Yes. Reliable. Take care of him. I will. That evening, when Matthew fell asleep, Claire and James sat on the porch and looked at the stars. Out here, in the village, you could see them like nowhere else, bright, close, endless. Thank you, James said. For what? For everything. For that night. For Matthew. For the life we have now. Claire leaned into him. It wasn't me. Life just put everything in its place. Maybe. But you were part of it. The biggest part. They sat in silence, looking up at the sky. And Claire thought about how strangely everything had come together. The blizzard. The birth on the highway. The healer's address. The poisoning. The healing. The meeting. As if someone had been writing a script, twisted, complicated, but ultimately right. Or maybe no one had been writing anything at all. Maybe life was just like that, unpredictable. Astonishing. Full of pain and joy at the same time. But now, right now, things were good. Now there was peace. And that was already a lot. That was everything. A year later, they had a daughter. Small, loud, with her father's dark hair and her mother's gray eyes. They named her Agatha in honor of the woman who saved Matthew. Agatha, we named our daughter after you, Claire said on the phone. Oh. Agatha fell silent. Oh, Claire. That's too much. No. It's exactly right. Matthew was happy. Mom, can I hold her? Not yet. She's still little. And when she grows up, then you can. I'll be the best big brother. I promise. And he was. He brought her the pacifier, rocked the stroller, sang her lullabies, the same ones Claire had once sung to him. And then he would fall asleep beside her, holding his sister, and they lay there together, two small people, bound forever. Claire looked at them and felt that this was it. This was what life was for. Not career, not money, not success. Children. Family. Love. Simple things. The most important ones. And outside the window, snow was falling soft, white, quiet. Just like back then, 3 years ago, when it all began. The blizzard on the highway, the birth in the car, the healer's address. The circle had closed. Life went on. And it was good. Just good.